Thank you all. The next speaker we have is Jessica Upani, who's going to be talking about organising conferences for learners and how we made it work in Namibia. Jessica is a mathematics and computer science student. She works as a computer studies teacher, and she's the chair of PyCon Namibia Society. Please give a warm welcome to Jessica.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this talk. We organized a conference for learners in Namibia, and I'll be sharing with you what activities we had on the conference. I'll also share with you the difference between organizing a conference for learners and also for adults, so that when you think of organizing one for yourself or for in your community, you know what not to do. I will also share with you the importance of continuing with this type of activities in our communities or for our learners. I was born in Okakarara, born and raised in a small town village in Namibia. We are a big country with very little people. We are just 2 million in our country. And yes, I'm a school teacher. I've been teaching now for 2 years. I teach computer studies to learners ages of between 13 and 18. And this picture or this slide represents how I got into the journey of Python, how I got to have all these conferences and all of that. In 2015, we had our very first Python conference in Namibia, and it was a 4-day conference. And before this conference, I had no knowledge of Python. I've never used it before. But what I've heard from people before having this conference, it was that it was not a language that was used in the industry, and it was kind of being outdated. And that was the information that I had from people in my community, which was definitely not true after attending this conference. The 4th day of this conference is this day, and this is the day that sold me out to Python. And this group of learners or students, it's a group that started PyCon Namibia Society. So we were now getting each other's contacts and trying to think of what we were going to do or what we were getting ourselves into, because we knew that we wanted to start a Python society in our country. We wanted to continue with the Python events in our country, but we didn't necessarily know what to do. So in this group, we are now trying to get our heads together and so forth. There were 2 things that I learned at that Python conference, the 2 things that helped me in Python until today. And one was the type of information that I learned on that day, or on those 4 days, within those 4 days. That was information that I could have taken me months to learn, but I've learned it in just 4 days, sorry. And we were given different talks, and we were also put through workshops, and that's how we got the information. And also the other thing was the love and the bond that we created after being at the conference. All the students that were at that conference, we knew each other, but we were not necessarily friends. And after the conference, we just had an amazing bond. And that was one thing that I also wanted to carry out to the learners, okay? So the conference that we had, we called it Computer Day. And how we came up with this name was, Computer Day was not the name we wanted for the conference to be called. It was just a name that came up when we started brainstorming about the idea, because what we knew was that we wanted to do something that engaged the learners, but we didn't necessarily know what we wanted to do. How this event started was through Python Society. But when we started in the beginning, we started with a school outreach program. So when we sort of deciding what we wanted to do in the society, we looked at learning Python, because all of us didn't have any Python background. So we first had to learn Python. And then we planned some workshops for students and for people from outside who wanted to join us. But also, we wanted to have a school outreach program that is going to reach out to school learners, because we wanted to introduce Python or programming to school learners so that when they came to university, they were better equipped than we were at the time. So we started with visiting schools for about an hour per school, and we would meet up learners like in a hall like this, computer studies learners, and we would talk to them about Python, about careers in computing, and then we would be showing them little programs created in Python, and then we would let them ask questions, and we would engage and answer the questions to them. So that's how it started. Then later on, we wanted to do more than just 1 hour per school. So that's how we came up with the computer day. And in the beginning, we didn't necessarily know what it was going to be. We just wanted to have a bigger event that was going to engage the kids into computer-related activities. So in the beginning, we just named it Computer Day for when we are going to change the name. And when the time came to change the name, no other name that we came up with could beat Computer Day. So we ended up having it called that. We didn't want to call it necessarily Python conference because in Namibia, the only school that I know that practices Python is my school, where I teach. In all other schools, they teach whatever they want. The curriculum doesn't necessarily say that this is the language that we should use. So we are free to use whatever language that we want, and we wanted to engage other schools as well in our conference, so we didn't necessarily want to make it Python or call it Python. So that's why we call it Computer Day, to just have all computer studies learners come and join us and do whatever they wanted. In Computer Day, we had 3 main focus areas that we planned. So we had talks, and in another venue, we had project presentation and poster presentations, and then we had food, okay? So I'll be talking a little bit about each one of them. And when it came to food, we had a menu of pasta salad, potato salad, and grilled chicken. And this menu was given to us by my mom. She helped us prepare the food. So we didn't have to find a caterer for the conference, and hence we spent little money on that. All we needed was just to buy the food. I just bought the food for her, gave her a place to cook and stuff and prepare the food, and gave her lots of volunteers of the learners, and then we had something to eat. So we also had project presentations and poster presentations. The posters were mainly just topics that kids did research on, and then they presented. And then the projects were software applications that the learners presented. We had a visitor, a school that visited us, and they had software applications that they created in Visual Basic, so they also showed us what they have created. And then we also sold some food, so there were some learners that wanted to sell food, like cupcakes, cakes, meat, grilled meat, and such. So we also had some food in there. Our main focus area was the talks. We had different talks. We had talks from the learners themselves telling us about their future plans for Python in schools. And one thing that I did not mention is that when we came up with this idea of reaching out to school learners, we came up with sort of like a branch of the PyNam Society, Python Namibia Society, and we called it PyNam Scholars, so that when we have anything to do with the learners and such, we had a group that was just focusing on that, and we called it PyNam Scholars. And the PyNam Scholars last year learned Python. I helped teach them Python. They participated in a programming competition, and they came second. So, so they had skills well enough to create software applications for themselves. So they also presented at Computer Day. And also future plans on how they wanted to expand to other schools and other projects that they wanted to also be involved in. We had talks from people from the industry, like software developers like you guys. We also had 2 panel discussions. One was by these 2 very important people in our country, in the computing society, because they are deans of computer science in 2 of the most I guess, high universities in my country. So with them, we discussed mainly things related to the syllabus of the school and also the university. Like, for example, how was the school syllabus preparing the learners well enough for the university syllabus? And if not, what were the shortcomings, and what could we as teachers do to bridge, the gap between the 2? We talked about the courses that we're offering and career choices. We talked about the behavior of the students when they come to university, and then they advised the learners on how they should be and not have that negative attitude that they normally come with when they come to university. And we talked about gender also in computing and what they thought about it, and many more things. We also had another panel discussion, and that one consisted of 2 former students and a current student. So with the students, we discussed mainly about the behavior of the child, of the learner. They told us things like what they wished they knew before they went to university, for example. They told us the bad behavior that they had when they were in university, and advised the learners on how to do it differently. We also talked about the skills that the learners will need once now they have graduated from university, for example. What softwares should they learn and focus on the most, and such things. So with that, we are just focusing on the attitude of the learner. And yes, that's it. We also had a privilege of having 2 visiting schools that joined us at Computer Day. And this bottom school is the one that had software applications that they presented to our learners. And if you are organizing a conference of your own, this is one thing that you also want to really look at. Because in our feedback form, many learners wanted more and more schools to have been there. But we only had 2. And to us, that was good because, you know, we came from nothing to having 2 schools that visited us. So hopefully next year we'll have more. But they wanted more. They wanted to interact with other learners. They wanted to learn from other learners and such. So that was one thing they requested for. This is just a picture of my grade 8 learners. You can tell how shy they are in presenting. We were all really, we didn't know, we were just bold enough to have the event, but we were shy. We didn't know what to expect and stuff, but they showed up and they presented, and I was very proud of them. That's why I wanted to show that picture. Yes, so now we come to the part where I talk about the differences between organizing a conference for learners and one of adults. I've been privileged enough to have been part of organizing a conference for adults. I've been organizing PyCon Namibia for 2 years now, or twice now. And then I've also organized this one, so I see the differences. But when I organized this conference for learners, I had the mindset of organizing a conference for adults. And that didn't play so well. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about a little bit here. When you're having a conference for adults, normally everyone can almost afford to buy tickets for the conference. But with learners, they can't, and their parents play a role. If parents don't see the need for this conference, tickets are not going to be bought. So for me to get them or to encourage them to buy tickets, I had to write them official letters through the school to tell them how important the conference was, and also to include that it was compulsory for each learner to buy a ticket. Because if not, then they wouldn't buy it. Or very few of them would not buy it. Very few of them would buy. And I got a few parents to buy, but if I didn't put the compulsory word, I know I could have gotten fewer learners to buy tickets. And also the other thing is behavior. With adults, it's very quiet, it's matured environment and stuff. But with learners, they are moving in and out, they are having chit-chats, they are playing games on their phones, and they get bored. So they don't care about what's happening on stage. They're having their sort of little stories happening in there. So if you're organizing a conference for learners, you should have volunteers sitting within the learners and just monitoring the whole activities, monitoring who goes in and out or when to go in and out, because they just constantly go in and out. Different expectations, okay? So in most learners that I had at the conference had never attended a conference. They have no idea what a conference is about, and what they thought it was about was that they were going to sit with computers, learn how to create games, or open up computers and fix them or make them work or whatever. They wanted hands-on stuff, and that's not what we gave to them. So maybe if you're organizing a conference for your learners or in your community, you should look at having pictures or maybe video demos demonstrating exactly what the conference is going to be about, so that you have those that know or that want to be there. Because this caused a lot of distractions. They come and they are just seated and they have talks and talks after another talk, and that's not what they expected. And that also caused distractions also to the other learners. Fun and games, okay? So kids get bored very, very, very easily. And this is not one thing that this is one thing we overlooked when we organized the conference. So we had talks after talks and no breaks in between that kids could engage. If you have a break, even a short break is not enough for the learner. You have to distract their mind a little bit and then they can focus again. So maybe if you are organizing this type of conferences, you can look at involving them into quizzes, or they have to be engaged in a little other event before they come back and sit again for talks. I don't recommend games because I feel like if kids get hyper and they get into that gaming mode, it's difficult for you to bring them down and calm them down. So if you can have maybe quizzes, or for us, I don't know how you guys as learners are, you know, when it comes to virtual reality, maybe they are already exposed to it and they won't find it interesting. But for the next conference, we thought of maybe bringing in some virtual reality type of stuff that they could see, and then that will keep them, you know, engaged or distracted, but not necessarily into games. So you could think of other ways that you could get them engaged, but not too playful. Also, speakers. For big conferences, speakers apply, and you choose whichever one you want and such. But for this, I had to look at what topics would the kids find interesting or useful, and what could they also comprehend. So I had to select some topics that would, I guess, or select areas that will cover almost all parts of computing, but also have specific information. So like, this is what I want the talk to have, because this is what the learner can comprehend, not just anything out there, okay? So I figured out, or I decided on the type of topics that I wanted, and then I started to headhunt the speakers. They didn't apply. I had to pick, you know, according to who I know works in this area and that area and that area. And then also, per speaker, I had to specifically sit with them and tell them, this is what I want, this is what I want, or this is what the learner can comprehend. So when you are speaking about this and this, don't be too technical or this or that. So that you have to speak with your speakers and also really get into it, because it plays a role. If kids are not able to comprehend what the speaker is talking about, then you are all wasting your time, you see. So that also had to be really looked into. Maybe for your conference, you can think of having a pre-workshop survey, maybe to let the learners decide on what they may be interested in, and then from that you can decide on how you're going to get your speakers. Funding also it depends on area, okay? So for me, it may be a problem, but for you, it may not be a problem. For me, I got my funding from tickets, from selling tickets. The learners had to pay 150 Namibian dollars per ticket, and that's slightly maybe less than 15 Australian dollars per ticket. I also got funding from 2 international companies. I'll talk about them in the end of my talk, and that was it, okay? So that's what helped me get funding for the event. I also cut costs through having my mom to cook for us, so we didn't have to pay for that, a lot of money for that. We also used the school venue, so we didn't have to pay for the venue. And we had loads of volunteers of learners, so we didn't have to get a lot of people to come in and then pay for them or anything like that. Locally, I didn't get any funding, and most companies said that they didn't have money. And I had one specifically that said that they couldn't fund my project because it wasn't a market for the type of business that they had. So, but in your areas, you might have really good companies that will help you fund that. It might not be a problem to all of us. Decorations. As much as it may seem simple, it's very, very important. At the conference, we had several balloons. We had some colorful ribbons around the venues. We had posters in the wall and stuff. But still, the kids complained that the venues were not properly decorated. So you should really go out there. Don't be afraid to make it colorful and sort of, and like that. You know, decorate the venues properly, because that was important. Almost every learner, okay, a lot of learners complained that the venues were not properly decorated. So that is one thing that they really care about. Okay, so now what is the importance of having this type of conferences, okay? The learners get to relate to the information that they learned in class, in a sense that if, for example, I have taught networking in the classroom, or I've taught how the internet works in a classroom, and someone from outside comes and talks about this idea, they go like, aha, so that's why Miss Upani was saying this, or that's why this and that. They get to have that moment. And also, they could also apply the knowledge through presenting posters or having their software applications presented and stuff. So they could also apply the knowledge that they were taught. Also, you know, with us, we know how important conferences are. We know how much we learn from conferences. Obviously, for the learners also, they are going to learn a lot from the conference, just as much as we do. So why not give this to them, you know? Also, inspiring computing career choices. Because when I organized the conference, I was focusing on different areas of computing. Learners got to explore on different sectors or different areas of computing. So they would know which one I'm more interested in and try to explore that, or they would know that this is not for me, you know, and then they would quit or do whatever, you know. So that also gives them a chance to look at that. Learners also get to explore or to show the world out there or other learners their passion and their knowledge through poster presentations or through programs that they have created as well. They also get to challenge themselves. They have something to look forward to have a software application that the whole school is going to look at, the whole world is going to look at. So obviously, I want to produce a software that is good looking, that is very well functional, and hence that is also a challenge for the learners. So we want to provide that challenge for them. In Namibia, we have had PyCon conferences 3 times now, and we normally have it at the end of January and mid-February. We have not set a date for the next PyCon conference in Namibia yet, but if you keep up with us or follow us on social media, you will find out the date very, very soon. I'm not sure if I got all the names right, but they are pretty much in that area. Maybe a capital letter somewhere, but yeah. Okay, thank you. I also want to thank the Python Software Foundation and the Django project for funding our Computer Day project. It was really, really helpful. And also the Cardiff University through the Phoenix project. They were the people who brought Python to Namibia in the first place. They are the reason why we are doing this in the first place. So I want to thank them because they have also kept funding our Python conference since the beginning. So I just want to say a big thank you to them. And also, if you want to be involved in, for example, maybe you don't necessarily want to organize a conference maybe in your community, but you want to get involved with us, there are many ways to do it. And you could also make a donation to making Computer Day happen next year. If you do, just give me your contacts and I'll contact you. You could also help us in maybe convincing the companies that you work for to give us a little something to make Computer Day happen next year. You could also perhaps attend PyCon Namibia, you know, or come and attend Computer Day with maybe 1 or 2 of your learners, perhaps. That would be really, really amazing. You could also give us your company stickers or, I guess, brochures or whatever that you want your company to have at Computer Day. You could send some of those things to us. We'll appreciate it. At Computer Day, I used stickers that they came late for our Django Girls workshop. So I kept them for a year, and we used them at Computer Day. So such things could also be useful in Namibia. Or maybe the lanyards or whatever, anything that your company wants to send us, we could have it. Also, maybe you could have summer schools in our country. We could arrange for you guys to come and mentor our children. Because what I've seen through attending the education, I guess, how do you call it? Education, excuse me? The education track. Yeah, the education track. What I saw is that the government really supports you guys. They listen to you guys. And you have really good summer schools. And that is one thing that we could also, maybe not necessarily at the same scale, but just, I guess, having something that the kids can be learning more than what they learn in the classroom. Because what I've also seen is the expert knowledge that you guys have is really good. And when you compare that to what we have in Namibia, you guys will really do a magic. So maybe you could also think of being involved in that manner. Otherwise, you can always find me on Twitter, or you can email me. Don't mind the email address. It was since I was in high school, and I never bothered to change it. So yes. Otherwise, do you have any questions, perhaps?
Thank you, Jessica. You made it look very easy, but I know that you faced a lot of challenges in what you were doing. I wonder if you can say something about one of the challenges that has been faced in Africa in an unexpected thing through the name Python itself. And has that been difficult for you, the name Python, in inviting children to something associated with snakes?
It has been not too big of a challenge, but there's a controversy around the snake in Africa. There's no way of running away from it. But because I work with learners, it's easy for me to get that idea out of their head. But it's controversial, especially with the snake. It's something that is associated with witchcraft, and parents are very skeptical about getting their kids involved in that. But it's not impossible to work around it. It's not impossible to work around it. The challenges that we face in Africa is mainly the hardware problems. We don't have the hardware resources, and that was one of the greatest motivators of having this type of event. We wanted to raise funds for our school computers, because at the school we don't have any computer resources. So last year we used Raspberry Pis that were donated to us by the Python conference. So at least I could teach 10 or so learners how to code, and that's how we won the competition, or got second place, as my kids like to remind me. And also that's how they got the skills good enough to write software applications that they presented at Computer Day. So we wanted to raise funds, and we did manage to raise a couple of funds for the computers, even though it's not enough. At least there's something, and maybe if we do it again next year, we'll be able to have a little bit more than what we had. So that's what motivated us to have this event.
Thank you, Jessica. You reported that the children paid a lot of attention to the fact that the convention wasn't properly decorated. I wonder how they actually complained about that. What were their complaints?
The complaints was that the place was poorly decorated. It was poorly decorated. So perhaps, because for me, I had a few lanyards around the venue. I had some posters in the wall. I had some balloons. So I thought that was enough. But they said the venues were poorly decorated. So you should probably have more balloons, have more colorful stuff around the venue, have, I don't know, their pictures maybe on the walls. But it was basically just that the venues were poorly decorated. We need more decorations.
Hi, yeah. I was just wondering how many students you had at the Computer Day and how many you're trying to get for the next one.
I had about between 50 and 60 learners, maybe a little bit more, but that was the basic number. At the end of the day, by the end of the day, after lunch, I had fewer learners at the conference. They started going. Maybe they were bored, some didn't know what it was about, and it wasn't satisfactory to their expectations at that point. At the end of the day, I had fewer learners, but at least I had about 60 learners. It was, I think, 64 or so by count. Some were late and so forth. But yes, I have more than 250 learners at the school, so I wanted a lot more. I wanted more than 100, and that's not what I got. But I'm sure we'll have more next time. I'll bribe them a little bit more. I'll plan around it. Yes. Thank you very much.